everybody. It's Chris Eads, and on the line is Wootini with another Gay Gamer video podcast. This week, I went back to the movies finally. The summer movie season seems to be starting, and now there are lots of big new releases. This week's was The Little Mermaid, which is The Little Mermaid. It's it's hard to review because it's basically just, if you like the cartoon, it's the same thing. It's another one of those scene for scene, shot for shot, line for line Disney remakes. And just with CGI instead of actual cell animated cartoon. It's fine. I don't know why this one didn't bother me as much. I don't know if it's because The Little Mermaid isn't one of my favorites, so it didn't really offend me like Beauty and the Beast did. Or if it's just that the songs are so good that I don't care. It's still just delightful and entertaining with the music and everything. But this one didn't bother me as much as some of the others, even though it is one of those carbon copy ones. They don't try to do anything really different. The CGI fish are good until the ones that talk. Thankfully, during Under the Sea, the fish are just basically just realistic looking kind of fish swimming around in colors, and it's just kind of pretty and cool. Flounder is a fish that has lips that move. They're not as creepy as the Beauty and the Beast characters, which were just pure nightmare fuel. Sebastian's the only one where it's what are you doing? It's kind of realistic, but then the eyes are kind of weird looking, and it's just sort of because they're trying to make them look realistic, but then they also need them to look cute, and those two things don't always really go together. The live actors are fine. Melissa McCarthy basically does a carbon copy of Pat Carroll, drag queening it up, and it was fine. Javier Bardem looks a little bit lost and out of his element with all the special effects. He just looked a little confused. Halle Bailey has a stunning voice. She is terrific until they go on land. And then her personality just disappears because she's mute and she just doesn't, and she's all ditzy and forget, because they add a whole new wrinkle so that she doesn't remember what she's supposed to be doing, so the whole thing just becomes kind of stupid and it makes her look bad, because they have to drag out everything. There is no reason that this movie needed to be 2 hours and 15 minutes long. I'm sorry. Every scene just feels like they just added a little bit more to every scene, and it's really bad once they go on land, because in the original cartoon, when they go on land, it's not as good as when they were underwater. And here, it's the second hour of the movie is them on land, and it's just oh my god, get back under the water where everything was pretty and nice and fun. And they added some songs, Eric gets extra scenes. He even gets an extra song of his own, but it doesn't really help to make Eric an actual character or interesting. He's still kind of just this pretty block of wood, but whatever. They did drop one song, and they added a few to help pad out the end of the movie and stretch it into 2 hours plus. Most of the songs are fine because Alan Menken is doing the music still. Howard Ashman's doing the music still. Alan Menken can't do the lyrics, R.I.P. They got Lin-Manuel Miranda, which for a couple of the songs, it's fine, but then there's one song that's all of a sudden, the other two fit in the music of the film, and they sound like part of the same musical, and then all of a sudden Scuttle gets this song that's it's Hamilton all of a sudden with the fast rapping and stuff, and it was like nails on a chalkboard. It just was so jarring and it did not fit, and it was very annoying, and I hated it a lot. So fair warning, unless you really love Lin-Manuel Miranda's rapping, in which case enjoy. But yeah, the whole experience was fine. It was just way too long and dragged out. I will say that the running time, it was helped by seeing it in 3D because the 3D looked great, like underwater with all the fish swimming in your face and stuff. Like Rob Marshall really knew it was going to be in 3D, so he put things in depth and used pop-outs and stuff, and it was great. Until they go on land, in which case then it becomes a little visually boring. But that's to be expected because that's how the cartoon was, sadly. So if you can see it in 3D, I recommend it in 3D if you like 3D, because 3D was fantastic for this. Otherwise, it's just CGI Little Mermaid. As for games, I do want to take a moment. Last episode, I had a special anniversary episode where I talked about my love for virtual photography, and my friend Cam asked why I didn't talk about Ghost of Tsushima, and it's just because I forgot, and because there's so many good photo mode games, and I forgot about Ghost of Tsushima, which A, has a good photo mode, and B, is just a generally gorgeous game to begin with. So you want to take photos all the time because everything's just gorgeous. Like one of my favorite photos that I took is literally just looking off into the distance at a sunset or a sunrise off a cliff. And I tweaked nothing about it. I just took the picture. You know, I just framed it. It was amazing. But their photo mode did two things that I hadn't seen before. One, like there's like, you know, cherry blossoms and maple leaves and yellow leaves and snow and whatever. And depending on where you are, you can actually add falling leaves to the scene, and you can change the intensity, you can change the wind direction, you can, you know, adjust all these things just to add a little more atmosphere to your photos, which I thought was a really fun addition. The other thing that they did, which I actually didn't really play with much because it was kind of a lot to deal with, they have a motion photo kind of thing where you can like set the camera positions and like move the camera through a scene or around a scene and show everything from all angles, and it was a very cool kind of matrixy kind of thing that you could do, and that was kind of neat. I didn't play with it a whole lot because I just like taking actual regular pictures, but it's a very cool addition to a photo mode that I had not seen before, so that was kind of neat. As for the games I'm playing, as I promised, I kept my promise, and I have been playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I thought I was closer to the end than I was, because it's been a couple of weeks now, and I'm still playing. I thought that I was going to end this trial, and then there would just be a little epilogue to wrap up some loose ends. But after that trial, there's another incident that occurs, and it starts another trial, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Guess then there's an epilogue after that, or will there be another trial? I don't know. There is one more chapter after this chapter. But it's funny because there's, with no spoilers, there was an incident that happens that I mentioned back when it happened, back when I first started playing this game, like a year or so ago. There was a lull in between chapters. Because it's Ace Attorney Chronicles 1 and Great Ace Attorney Chronicles 2 on one Switch cartridge. And I took a break in between playing the two separate games. Something happens in the first one that made me very upset, and then something in the second game, there's a reveal that makes that better, but then they go and throw another plot twist in that makes me all upset again, and I'm just like, what the hell, dude? These are supposed to be lighthearted fun. But I should be able to finish it by next week. I don't know. We'll see. It just keeps lasting longer than I expected it to, which is great because then there's more gameplay. Get your money's worth. And then just very quickly at the end, I just wanted to mention the PlayStation Showcase that Sony just did, where most of the trailers I did not care about. Like, it's games, like sequels to games that I don't know, or in the case of Dragon's Dogma 2, I didn't really care for Dragon's Dogma 1. There's also like a bunch of player versus player type games that I am not into. But the big one was obviously Spider-Man 2, which was not a trailer, it was just, here is a whole lot of gameplay. And it was fine in the beginning, And they showed like the intro of Craven, and then they showed like Peter in the black suit, which makes me think that we're probably building, because it's a lot to do with Craven, so I'm thinking that this will be the cliffhanger, and the third game will be about Venom, but I don't know. But he's in the black suit, like attacking people violently, and then you switch to Miles, and then Miles goes in, and then like I think the Lizard showed up or something, and that's when I was like, I'm turning this off, because I am buying this when it comes out, and I don't want to have entire scenes of the game spoiled. Stop it. Like I'm already sold. I don't need to see more gameplay. Like if there's additions to gameplay, I'll like read an article about it online or something. I don't want to actually watch a trailer that shows me like entire scenes of the game. That's just unnecessary. I don't like spoilers. Please, thank you. And then there was also a trailer for Assassin's Creed Mirage, which I found strangely underwhelming. Maybe it's just me, but like I've really enjoyed the last few games in the Assassin's Creed series. They've been just stunning and gorgeous and really, really great. So here, I know they're trying to go back to the assassinating and less of the combat and war and stuff. But just watching Basim like parkour around and like assassinating people, it was sort of like, it just looked, I don't know, it looked underwhelming. It looked like the animation and the graphics just didn't look as good as I expected them to, given the recent, the recent Assassin's Creed games that looked so amazing. This just felt kind of like a step back. So I know they're trying to do that with the gameplay, but I felt like they're doing it with the graphics as well and the animation. And I was like, oh, like it looked weirdly underwhelming to me. But we'll see when it actually comes out what the deal is. The other thing that they announced is this like Project Q thing, which is basically like a handheld PS5, except it's not really, it's not like a Switch or a Steam Deck. It's literally, they just took the PlayStation controller and broke it in half and glued it to each side of a tablet. It isn't an actual handheld. You're using it, which will keep the costs down, so that'll probably be helpful. I'm assuming it won't cost too terribly much, because it is just a PlayStation controller glued to a tablet. Because you're just streaming the games over Wi-Fi from your PS5 with Remote Play, which you can do on your tablet or phone now. I can't. I think I tried to do it when I first got my PS5. I think I tried to download the app onto my tablet, but my tablet is like 5-6 years old, so it like was like, oh yeah, no, this is not going to work on your tablet. Just FYI, you can't download this. But I'm like, okay, so like I'm not really sure what the point of it is, because it isn't a proper handheld. Like, you need a Wi-Fi connection. So like if you're like commuting, if you're like on a bus or a train, like you can't play it. You're in the park, whatever, you can't play it. If you're on a Greyhound bus, you could play it, but the Greyhound bus Wi-Fi is going to be super garbagey. So like, I guess you could turn your phone into a hotspot and use that Wi-Fi to play your PlayStation games on the go wherever, but that's going to run up your bill. I'm not quite sure why this exists, like who this is for. Like, you can play it, but you need to have like a strong Wi-Fi connection in order to play over Remote Play. So I'm not really sure what the point of it is. Also, they announced PlayStation earbuds, wireless earphones, and I'm just like, how are those supposed to work? Because when I first got my PlayStation 5, I looked to see how to connect my Bluetooth headphones to it. And they're like, oh, you can't. You have to buy like this dongle that you stick in the back as a Bluetooth adapter to help connect to Bluetooth devices. And I'm like, the hell? So I'm like, do these headphones come with an adapter? Because you can't, or do the headphones only work with the handheld thing? Do they not work with the actual PlayStation 5? Because if they do, then they need to have an adapter, because otherwise it doesn't work with Bluetooth, because for whatever reason, the PS5 doesn't connect to Bluetooth devices for some reason. I don't know why. So I don't know, but there's not a whole lot of information on those things yet, so we'll wait and see. I'm going to shut up now because I feel like I've gone on too long. come back next episode when I will hopefully have finished Ace Attorney, but maybe not, because the next chapter might end up being much longer than I thought it was going to be. Find out then. See you then. Bye!